In today's video, how Caitlin lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks with a rapid fat loss protocol.
All by myself.
What's going on, guys? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com, and we got Kait Callahan here, also from ProPhysique.com, standing on some dumbbells. So
I'm short.
I don't want to bump her because she'll fall. But we have an exciting topic today because Caitlin is in her grad program at the University of South Florida. So why don't you tell us about what this 2 weeks was for? What was it about?
So we wanted to see how much fat you could take off of a relatively lean, healthy, resistance-trained person without impacting their physiology as far as their resting metabolic rate, and other measures that we can discuss a little bit later as far as like lean body mass, right? So people that are resistance trained, we diet all the time, but we don't want to lose lean body mass, and we don't want to deal with metabolic adaptations that happen when you diet, like a decreased in resting metabolic rate. So we wanted to examine how much fat could we take off of someone in a 2-week period, eliminating those negative adaptations.
So for anyone that's not familiar with the University of South Florida, Dr. Campbell's program over there, they're really interested in like physique science. It's not just exercise science. It's not just fat loss for like obese people. They're actually looking at trained individuals that are trying to have some kind of enhancement to their physique, and specifically a lot of competitors come out of there, and a lot of people are actually pros have come out of that lab. So what they're doing is a little bit different than what might be normally happening. So this was I would call it ultra aggressive approach, especially for someone. Now luckily you were able to do it, I think in my mind, because we hadn't dieted. So for those that aren't familiar, Kait was my client first. Now she works for ProPhysique, but you hadn't dieted since last November.
Right.
So you had been in a gain building phase for about a year.
Yes.
So this actually came at a pretty good time. Your calories were good, your cardio was low. So I was still shocked at the results, which I've already said at the title of the video. So let's talk about the protocol. Let's talk about what your calories were, your metabolic rate was kind of before this. Then let's talk about the actual approach.
So after not dieting for an entire year, I knew going into this that at some point I wanted to do a mini cut in my off season, and I wanted to apply it to the research that we're doing. I'm a really good subject for this. I'm neurotic. I basically live in my own metabolic ward, right? So I measure everything, and it was very controlled. So that's why the practicality of it was good for me as a research subject. What we did was we took my calories from my off season that I was maintaining on, and which was almost 2,200 calories, and the aggressive deficit that we implemented was 50%. We did enough protein to sustain muscle mass. My intake was 150 grams that week, which is actually low for me if you know me. And then we slashed the other calories, and I could only eat vegetables as a carbohydrate source. So it's something that we see all the time in coaching as far as what's termed depletion. Again, it's not always as low as 50 grams of carbs from vegetables, but we do see that protocol quite often. And so I did that for a week. Then we measured some post-testing stuff as far as resting metabolic rate, body fat percentage, body water, and lean body mass. And then I did it again for a following week.
Well, we can't talk specifically about the exact numbers. Why? Well, because this is going to be in some research, and so that needs to be handled properly. But what we can say is that there was a significant drop on the scale. However, you guys did test body water.
Yes.
Which I think one of the most common things you see is, oh, I lost 20 pounds in a month. And people will say, wow, you lost 20 pounds of fat. It's like, well, hold on.
Yes.
So what does the body water show us?
So when you eat carbohydrates, right? Carbohydrates are stored in the muscle with glycogen and water. So when you cut them out, what's happening is your body's kind of flushing that out of the system, right? You're losing that. People that go into ketosis, for example, when they cut carbs out of their diet, they lose a bunch of weight and they think it's magic. However, a lot of it is just water retention within the muscle, and inflammation and things like that kind of get expelled from the body. So that's what the majority of the weight loss that I saw came from, was body water overall. And that's a really good indicator, and something that I think everybody should take into consideration when they do cut carbs drastically. Like people do, when you introduce them back in, you're going to increase weight if you weigh yourself. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, carbs made me fat. No, they didn't. They just restored what you had just flushed from your body.
Yeah, so a lot of times somebody will say to me like, oh, well, if I drink water, will that help me avoid losing water weight? No, it's not that you're not drinking water. It's that you're not retaining it because you're taking in less sodium, less carbohydrates. So your body just has less body water, which on most of these tests actually shows up as lean body mass.
Yes.
So did you guys test lean body mass before and after?
Yes. So we
without a refeed at the end?
Without.
Okay.
Completely.
So after 2 weeks of basically just veggies, still training like normal,
Yep.
You didn't add any cardio, correct?
No. The only thing that we adjusted was nutrition. So we wanted to keep training the same, and we wanted to keep cardio the same.
Perfect. So let's talk about lean body mass. Are you allowed to say like how that changed, or just maybe say it did or didn't?
I will say that it did not change in any statistically significant measure.
That's pretty significant, especially considering, you're only getting a couple 50 grams of carbohydrates a day from veggies.
Yeah, when you account for the loss in body water total, lean body mass as a measure from...
So after 2 weeks, how ready were you for like a big cheat meal?
That's the thing. I was like, I could do this for longer.
She's a little crazy. Caitlin's a little bit on the would much rather be dieting year-round side of the sport. She's someone that I have to push to not be in prep, but it's paid off. You've built some muscles. As she's a competitor. I'll probably throw some pictures up here. So the issue we've had with Kait is that she gets very lean, but she needs more size. Right. So it's not always easy to convince you to not be in prep. So I saw you were oddly excited about this when I saw you. So I think that just speaks to your personality type. Not everybody would be probably so excited. I know I'm not going to mention any names. It's people that did this and didn't finish it because it was just a little bit rough.
Yeah, and it is really aggressive, and it is not sustainable. And I will say that this protocol practically is probably not for most people. People that can't deal with hunger, people that aren't used to those kind of psychological and physiological adaptations that happen when you create a deficit in general, people that struggle with, a 10%, 15%, you're going to feel hunger at some point. And so being able to cope with that is something that I'm very good at. Other people, not so much. And so the generation of a deficit that's practical to you needs to be something that you kind of work in a realistic fashion.
Well, so let's talk about that specifically. Like, how much hunger did you deal with?
I will say the first 4 days were a breeze. I was like, am I even dieting? I structured my training to do my heavier compound days earlier in the week because I knew I was going to feel good. I still had that muscle glycogen for power, and I kept creatine in, which I think is really important. After that, the day 4, I started to feel it at night, but during the day I was so busy I was distracted, which I think is really important for just like not being food focused. Like, be busy, don't sit around thinking about food. And then I will say by day 8, I was hungry kind of constantly throughout the day. And I knew that I was going to be hungry, so I drank more diet soda. If I look at my logs, I definitely had more of that. My water intake increased because that can help with satiety if you just kind of fill your tummy with water, right? Yeah. So little things like that I noticed in my behavior changed. But those are things that I knew were going to happen as I...
Well, and with only 50 grams of carbs all coming from veggies, you don't really have the option to add like high volume meals. And you weren't getting any kind of refeed or diet break in there. So, I mean, with such a short period, I think what's interesting here is that it changed your habits so much. And anytime you're getting into a fat loss with someone that's interested in this, you got to get your lifestyle different. You got to change your habits, your patterns. Now, I don't think that this approach would be sustainable for much longer, if at all. No. And yet we know people that have entered like contest preps with coaching that's questionable for like done this for months, right? So it's not that it's something you can't do. People have done it, but it can really lead people to a bad place. So it's interesting to me is like, okay, if we start a fat loss phase with this approach and then go back, maybe have a refeed or a diet break week or bring calories up to maintenance and then go into a normal deficit, is that going to have a benefit not only on the overall progress of the diet, but on just getting things kickstarted? Because whether or not you actually lost all that weight was body fat, it was a significant drop on the scale. And sometimes that is like momentum that gives you like a boost. You're like, oh wow, I want to keep this progress going.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important too, is like implementing the diet break, which we are using, and I will have my body composition done again in 2 weeks at where we are now calorie wise, so definitely brought them up a good amount. And we will retest this. And what's important, like I said, is I have the ability to measure body water. I know approximately how much weight I should gain in response to implementing a diet break, bringing calories back up, bringing carbohydrates back in. So understanding that adjustment as far as the rebound effect, right? A lot of people will be like, I've gained fat and weight are not the same.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see, where everything is after that period, and kind of see what happens as far as body composition, body water, and metabolic rate
Awesome.
after that post-testing.
So I'm going to link Kait's channel below. It'll be the first link in the description. So go follow her because she's putting out a bunch of information. She's about to get her master's degree in exercise science from the University of South Florida, and she's doing great things here with Pro Physique. So we'll probably do a follow-up video because diet breaks are something that are near and dear to me. I feel it's really changed the success level that I've had as a coach, not only with clients, but also with clients that are done competing. It just sets people up for so much more success. So I really want to see how you respond to this 2 weeks with a diet break after such an aggressive approach. I think it's going to give us a lot of good information. Stuff that we probably are already aware of, but it's cool to see it in writing by the people that, put out studies.
The nerds.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.